We are back on Morning Line. Thanks for joining us on this Tuesday. As you see on the screen, we're talking about coping with stress, depression, and the like. Not just for the holidays, but of course, a lot of you right now following what's happening in Chattanooga, and it's a stressor for all of us. It's just a horrible tragedy there. We can take your calls if you want to join in, too. Your thoughts, your feelings, 737-7587. Not just for me, but for Dr. Karen Ray with us. She's Chief Medical Officer at Centerstone, and it's really good to have her on this morning. During the break, we were talking just a little bit about some of the different feelings that folks are going to have and reacting to the situation. There's a lot of positives you can try to do to get help to get through this, but some folks go through some negative or have things that they may be drawn to that aren't going to help matters, but they go to it anyway because that's how they feel. We're talking suicidal tendencies, but self-medication, all that stuff's going to go on.
Well, I think that's true, and of course that we have the holiday blues that adds on to this. There are a lot of stressors, and this is certainly a huge stress for many people. I guess not only in Tennessee, but across the country.
Sure.
This is going to resonate with, I think, the majority of the population, every parent.
You're talking about the Chattanooga incident.
Yes. Yeah. And so that's going to be additive with the stress. I think, again, it's to think about the fact that we all, I think, have stress at this time of the year, just in general. Some people have the sort of holiday blues, feeling a little more sad. And then other people can truly become depressed related to the stress. And of course, loss, having the anniversary of a loss.
On a holiday.
On a holiday. Gosh. Death, divorce, family conflict with friends. Those are all really significant losses. And then there's the phase of life. One of our callers talked about how things have changed in terms of his holiday celebrations as he's moved along in years. So these are all things that contribute, I think, to stress. We also have people who are having issues around buying gifts and entertaining and travel and the stress that causes on their finances.
Sure, the finances, or making sure your house is clean because you think everyone coming to visit is going to be judgmental.
Right.
Which is not true. People are always very cool about it, but those stressors, getting ready to host for the holidays, I like it. My wife, not so fun.
Right.
I mean, she loves our guests, but she's always stressed about making sure the house. And it really, I worry, can sometimes ruin the experience.
Well, it's very difficult for people who assume responsibility for that. Then I think there's several other things. Alcohol is frequently available around the holidays. And we know that alcohol is a central nervous system depressant. And that doesn't make people feel good. It doesn't improve mood stability. So it's really important to moderate alcohol use. And then,
it's kind of like the idea of alcohol use. If you want to have a little rum with your eggnog and you're in a festive mood, fine. But if you're feeling blue and you're drinking the alcohol because you just feel awful and you want to escape it, that's going to be damaging.
Well, I think it's a matter of how much you drink. But the issue is that your mood about it, your thoughts about it, contribute to how much you drink.
Right.
I think the other thing that impacts alcohol use is that people get their eating schedule off. So they might not have 3 meals a day. And then if you're drinking without food on board, not only is it bad for your mood, but it creates the risk of driving with too much alcohol on board.
Yeah, and it hits you. Let's take a call from Grady. Grady, good morning.
Good morning.
Hi, Grady.
Privatizing the bus drivers in Chattanooga, are they being discriminatory about who they put driving the buses? And you talk when the first responders got there, they said that they had children ejected from the bus, which meant if they had seatbelts, at least they would have been inside the bus. And then they said they had some that were down, in between the seats where they couldn't get them out. So, 5 billion is what it says. But if it's $1 billion per child that was lost in Chattanooga last night, I believe we need to go ahead and spend that.
Yep.
I ain't got to listen to your comments.
Hey,
Nick.
thanks. Yeah, again, we're going to do another show on that, and you're absolutely right. That's going to be looked at about the idea of seat belts. Phil Williams has done special reports on that. He was just talking about the children being wedged between these seats. We know about the deceased. There were 5 of them on the bus. But there was a neighbor that responded to the wreck when it first happened and said she got out there and she described it to a reporter about how there was one child there that was kind of shook up but not, mortally wounded or anything like that, but was, hurt and couldn't talk.
Sure.
And the way, and she just said, look, I just tried to protect him and wait until emergency crews got here, and she wasn't sure what to do except just sit there with him. Well,
I think that was the correct thing to do.
Yeah. I mean, that's the thing. That's what's emotional. I just think about that, walking out there and seeing the kids. But then I wonder, with a child like that, we're talking about kindergartners through 5th grade. Okay, then I'm just wondering, how this is something that you have to assume will stay with them now the rest of their lives, right?
Well,
they will never, ever forget this.
Well, I don't think they will totally forget it, but I think many of these children will be very resilient. They will get help. Their families will get help. Their families will support them.
Sure.
And many of them, even though they don't totally forget it, will be able to move forward without it making a terrible impact on their lives. I think the issue is for those children who perhaps have vulnerability to being depressed already, then that's going to be much more difficult. Or if their families have a vulnerability to being depressed.
I'm wondering, and you've told me that you were a pediatrician for years and the many things that you've done, but can you identify in a kindergartner or at that young age, I guess, besides, I'm sure it happens, but I mean, is it real easy to diagnose depression in kindergartners?
Well, it's not obviously real easy.
I'm just saying, as opposed to adults. To me, have they developed to that point where they can be having depression?
Sure.
I mean, I'm talking about the depression, not just, they're upset because mom took my candy away before dinner, but just walking around for a couple days on end depressed.
Well, and I think young children do get depressed, and we see, I think we see more crying at that age. We also might see the child be more withdrawn. On the opposite side of that, some youngsters begin to act out, to behave without regard to the usual classroom rules or the usual family expectations. So you can see either withdrawing or then behaving in a different way.
Gotcha.
But also sleep and eating are 2 pretty reliable signs of depression. And with youngsters, often they would sort of lose their appetite, or they might have trouble sleeping, or they might be fearful, not wanting to sleep alone, not wanting the lights turned out, not wanting to get on the school bus, not wanting to leave mom and dad.
Parents need to be ready for that now. And whether you're in Chattanooga or elsewhere, if your children become aware of this story. Let's go to Mike. Mike, good morning.
Hey, Nick, I've talked to you before about the homeless, but I would like to ask the Dr. Karen there, maybe she could give me some ideas how to help the homeless more with depression when they feel like nobody loves them and nobody cares about them. And I would like to also know if she has an office in Nashville, maybe where I can send some of the homeless that maybe she could help where I can't. And I just want to commend her and you for having this topic today, because I feel like it opened new doors to be able to help people deal with depression and stuff like that. And I'm hoping and praying that some of the homeless can hear this, or anybody that needs help, not to give up hope that, that God has a plan for everybody and He loves everybody and He's willing to help. And God sends people like you and Dr. Karen there to be able to get out the word, and I appreciate what you're doing, and have a great day.
Hey, thank you, Mike. Mike does a lot of good work for the homeless, and you wonder about, the holidays for them. I'm going to be actually this week, and a lot of us will be over at the Union Mission here.
Right.
This morning they're frying turkeys over there, and you see, I don't get over there as often as I should, even though I support the mission, and the long lines and the number of homeless that come through there. And I always, as I see them and serve them meals, wonder what's going through their minds. They're always smiling and pleasant when they come
Right.
through and happy, but what about that? Do you guys deal with the homeless much?
Oh, we do, and I think we will be at the end of the show, Mike, putting the numbers on the screen for Reaching Centerstone. It strikes me that love is very practical for the homeless. It's about having a warm place to stay and food, and about getting health care. There are a number of facilities in the Nashville area that do provide health care for uninsured. There are a number of ways to sign up for federally funded programs to insure the homeless for health care. So there are resources. It's just, I think it's very difficult to help people connect with resources, and I really appreciate your concern, especially in the winter time. It's just heartbreaking to imagine people who are cold.
Yeah, no, you're right. And listen, we will put up her number at the end of the show on how you can contact Centerstone. On that note, we need to take a quick break. We have more phone calls for you, and we'll continue as we talk about the depression. The situation, of course, right now, very acute as they're dealing with the situation in Chattanooga. We'll talk more with the doctor right after this. Stay with us.